Hello, welcome back to another series of the Rippling Pages podcast. It's series 4, and I'm absolutely delighted to have you here. I'm Liam Bishop, a writer and critic from Leeds, and today I'm joined by Seraphina Madsen. The Guardian has called 2023 the year of Witchlit. Seraphina with Aurora is arguably one of 2023's earliest proponents of it. Aurora, raised by her grandmother in a poor Christian community in Arizona, eventually finds her way to an elite prep school. At first, she reads theories on psychology and existentialism before her education takes a darker path into the teachings of the occult. You'd be naive, however, to think this is a novel about fearing the witch. Instead, Aurora teaches us about the malevolent forces working in front of our very eyes that we choose to turn a blind eye to every day. Following Dodge and Burn that was selected for the Republic of Consciousness longlist, this is Seraphina's second novel. Both of them are published by Dodo Inc. Seraphina, join me from London.
So this novel has arrived in a year heralded as the year of Witchlit. How does it feel to be caught up in this?
I wasn't aware that there was a witchlit sort of popularity movement happening until I had an event at Foyles for the launch of Aurora. So that wasn't in my mind when I was writing it. Witchcraft and paganism in the style of Carlos Castaneda that's sort of fueled my writing from the beginning with my first novel. So it was a continuation of that, really.
Did you set out with a witch in mind, or did that character come later?
No, it was more, I set out with more in mind of a djinn who's the narrator of the story, because I was pretty fascinated with the idea of what is real and what isn't real, what people perceive to be real and not real. And when you look at Christianity, angels are real, God is real, this figure of God as a man up in the sky. And in the Quran, jinns are real. So I wanted to sort of investigate that and look at that, what people actually believe is real, because I have friends who believe 100% that jinns are real. And who am I to say that they aren't? We haven't been able to prove that jinns are not real. We haven't been able to prove that angels aren't real.
Well, Aurora she's born into a evangelical Christian community, and it's interesting, I think, that you set her early life. So you tell the story, don't you, from her birth? And it's interesting that you choose to start this within a evangelical Christian community. Was that intentional, or is this more about challenging a worldview that is set within specific ideas of what is real and what isn't real?
Yes, it does have to do with belief systems. And also in the US, the evangelical culture is really large. And it's something that I don't know, I wanted to look at it because it was something that was a bit sort of scary to me. So she is born into evangelical sort of trailer trash. She grows up in a trailer park. She's third generation, quote unquote, trailer trash. And I wanted to have the idea of this fairy tale where the child is born in, I don't know, in a little muddy deprived village or something like Cinderella, and finds her way into the castle with the prince, but in a modern version, but also in a way that was ironic and satirical. But so I was also looking at the idea of the social mobility that happens in fairy tales and is supposed to be being wealthy and making it to the castle is supposed to make you happy and happily ever after and all that kind of thing. So I was looking at that, which is a social mobility that you can see in the US. The whole idea of the American dream has to do with that, coming from nothing and working hard and being able to afford your own castle with a swimming pool and a Ferrari.
Castle and a Ferrari. Well, Aurora, she makes her way, doesn't she, to an expensive prep school, and her grandmother helps her get her there. And on appearance, it looks like she leaves behind this quite evangelical Christian culture.
Yeah, I did want to touch on the indoctrination that could happen when you're in an evangelical, when you grow up in an evangelical society. What happens potentially when the person who's been indoctrinated grows up and reads things and looks to other ideas about what is real and what isn't real and what they want to believe. So it was also that sort of journey that she's gone on and indoctrinated into the evangelical beliefs, so much so that she would want to die for Jesus. And then reading herself, choosing the books that she wants to read herself, educating herself, and realizing that maybe she isn't evangelical in her beliefs, and maybe she is pagan, maybe she believes in something else.
Yeah, that's quite a nice way of putting it. Maybe she isn't evangelical in her beliefs. And there seems to be something in this novel about evangelicalism, if you want to call it, or a kind of doctrine, a doctrinal way of thinking that this novel critique or certainly rails against in some form. And there seems to be something here about how we access ideas, how we access knowledge about the world, and in turn ourselves. I wondered if at this point you could just give us a bit more of an insight into some of the books and the theories and the philosophy that she reads, and the significance of those.
She begins to read books that she finds interesting, just books on history, like, for example, Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, which is a Native American history of how the United States became the United States with the genocide that happened against the Native American people. That's just one example, which made her realize that the country that she grew up in was actually founded on the death of the Native people who lived there. Then when she goes to the prep school and she's reading sort of books about witchcraft and with the friend that she meets, this is opening her mind to different ways of thinking. Reading Joseph Campbell about myth and other kinds of books related to that, Greek myths, and realizing that there's another world out there, that there's another history out there rather than the Bible, the history that the Bible portrays, and opening her mind to all these different ideas. That's something that happened to me and happened to a lot of people, I think, when they sort of leave the nest, as it were, and begin to educate themselves with books that they that they find interesting. This teenage place of everything is very new and you're constructing your reality out of things that you've learned.
Yeah, do you think adolescence gives a particular access to that? It's a particular time, where you are trying to create your own sense of the world.
Yeah, I think that is a time in most people's lives when you're questioning a lot of things, you're very curious, you're sort of going outside perhaps the boundaries that your parents have taught you, that your school has taught you. You want to experiment with things. I mean, maybe not all teenagers, but definitely when I was growing up and the teenagers that I was surrounded with, that was a time for experimentation and just a bit of rebellion.
I mean, what do you think about Aurora sort of exploring these things that might be associated with, I don't know, the occult and the devil and that kind of thing?
Well, I don't look at the occult as really being associated with the devil. I think that what we consider to be witchcraft began probably when we were living in caves and making cave paintings. It's this human desire to change our environment around us, to bend the environment to our will, to make reality as we wish it to be. I think that's at the heart of witchcraft. A lot of the medieval books on witchcraft, which are sort of the typical witchcraft that we think of, these came from Egyptian, the Book of the Dead, the spells that you find there, the amulets that people would make, um, the curses that people would make also in ancient Greece, and you see this in the ancient Greek mythology, the spells, the curses, all of that kind of thing. That's part of what we consider to be witchcraft today, or it's a filtering down of what we consider to be witchcraft today, which I think must have begun with our ancestors in the caves painting the figures that they painted on the walls. I think that they were trying to perhaps draw something into being, to bend the outside to their will. Um, so I think it's something that's probably very primal in us. We want to change fate or change destiny or change our path in life, and calling on these natural forces, which which is where paganism comes in and is related to witchcraft, because it is really being able to bend the forces of nature to your benefit. And I think that has something quite powerful to say to people today, as we're losing more and more of nature, and we don't even really understand how nature works exactly.
I guess tying into a sense of process, at least, it is just making me think about how you do write characters that are in they are in the environment, they're in the world, they're kind of searching it, they're exploring it, and the kind of intellectual exploration that they undertake does come with a sense of that they are exploring the world as well. And I don't know if, just because I was thinking to Dodge and Burn, your first novel, longlisted for the Republic of Consciousness Prize, and that was centered on a road trip, exploring the disappearance of a woman at the hands of a strange man called Dr. Vargas. And that, again, that was full of ideas about countercultures and that kind of thing. But it just seemed to me that movement, being in the world, seemed really important.
Yeah, I love the idea of the road trip and of visiting other places, seeing other things, traveling, because when you travel, it opens your mind up to new ideas. It opens you up to danger. Um, it opens you up to just so many things when you're able to travel and see other cultures and other ways of life. So it's something that I do like to incorporate that I have incorporated into both of those novels. But Dodge and Burn was my fascination with the American road trip and with Kerouac's On the Road, and how I wanted to partially subvert Kerouac's On the Road, which was so focused around men, and the women were just on the side and they didn't have any major part to play. So I wanted to do a road trip novel where the protagonist was a woman, to just subvert that whole idea, like the woman taking the wheel, whatever. What I wanted to subvert, because On the Road is just such an iconic, legendary novel. I wanted to do something to subvert it. The whole idea of having it be about a woman having the main story on the road trip, because Kerouac's women are notoriously on the side as sort of props in a way. It's a story really about the men, and I just thought it would be interesting and fun to make a story partially about a woman going on a road trip.
As I said, there are some kind of journeys, not as extensive as a road trip, but there are. What I find interesting is that. So obviously the girls, so Aurora makes a friend, doesn't she, Sylvie, and then this expands to a wider group of friends, and they start experimenting with, I don't know what you call them, when they start to kind of go into the realms of the unseen and that kind of thing.
Yeah, they start experimenting with, actually, a lot of that comes from the spiritualist movement.
Okay.
Dion Fortune wrote a few books which were supposedly, one was fiction, but some are supposedly non-fiction, about how to access other realms of reality, which is part of magic. And so they were reading books like that and following them, the instructions on how to access other realms. And those are one of the forays that they had into what could be considered witchcraft. But yeah, there are a lot of the tenets of spiritualism in the book that they read about and experiment with.
Hey there, just a quick message from me, and just to say, if you're really enjoying today's podcast, I'd be really grateful if you left a review on your favourite podcast provider. The Rippling Pages is all about letting writers talk about their craft so that you and other listeners can learn more about the art of literature. Leaving a review increases the reach of the podcast and hopefully means that more people will hear about the writer's work. Thanks very much, and it's just great to have you here.
It kind of comes across as a bit of a journey in itself, and I don't. Well, there's just a section here where you said 5 girls came into a broken circle where they'd fallen onto the floor, one here, another there, wrists over ankles, arms over legs, which is also a very nice instance of how really lovely pace and incantatory sort of feel of your sentences. And then you say, with the sensation that they had been far away on a long journey and returned.
Yeah, that was when they had done something similar actually to what whirling dervishes do. When you go around and round and you just pass out, you can actually get into a REM state when you do that, and you can have these visions. That's what I was trying to replicate in that scene, that the girls were just spinning round and round and went into this other reality, this dream state reality, um, where they get into contact with some ancient Greek gods.
I don't know. I mean, to go back to On the Road and the kind of road trip novel, there's kind of irony that underlies these novels, isn't there? That no matter how far they travel, they don't necessarily always result or lead to a sense of greater enlightenment about the world in a way. The world still exists in a kind of some shitty form, it's still the kind of same prejudices, are still the kind of same ideological issues. And I don't know if there was a sense of, is it a journey that they're going on, or is it a more sense of escape that they're after?
I think what I wanted to capture was this longing to know, to learn, to experience. And so you could say maybe it's both. I mean, they want to escape, but they also want excitement. They want to learn about the boundaries of reality because they've been reading these books that have been telling them that the reality that they know is not the only reality. And the books are historical books, that and human beings have been speaking of these unseen realms since Egyptian times, at least. So the girls they want to see if these realms do actually exist, if what it says in these books is true, is whether it's possible to see these other realms. So they're just experimenting really, and they fall into it, and they do end up seeing these other realms that have been spoken about by the ancient Egyptians, Buddhists, shamans.
Is this book a result of research, or is it a result of a particular belief?
Well, I'm fascinated by the idea that there could be these other realms, that the reality that we experience every day isn't necessarily the only reality. So it's something that I've been studying. I mean, I can't say that I necessarily believe in anything. I'm very skeptical. It's something that fascinates me, that I have been reading about and studying for many, many years. So I don't have anything definitive to say. I can't say that I believe in it, but I believe that it's possible. According to quantum physics, there's a theory that we live in a reality with 10 dimensions. So who knows? I can say that I've myself and people that I know could possibly have visited other realms, but that's a thing you don't really know 100% if you have or not. You can't really say with 100% certainty that you visited another realm. Are
Crikey.
dreams other realms? I don't know.
I think there's a pervasive sort of sadness through the novel anyway, and it's what some of these girls experience and what people like these girls might experience. But the final act is quite a sad and dark one in some respects, and I just wondered why you chose to take it that way.
Well, I think that life is difficult. Life is hard. Um, and so you don't ever want to write anything that's just all unicorns and rainbows. That's just not reality. The jinn historically is a mischievous creature. So that is an aspect to the jinn's qualities and personality. And I wanted to remain true to that, the jinn being very mischievous and dark. It also has something to do with that just in life, you can just get thrown these horrible curveballs that you don't see coming, that you don't even know are there. Sometimes when you sort of evoke the idea that you can be living through something and you think that the what you see as the reality is actually not the reality at all.
I kind of an innocent worldview was not reality. It's this kind of
Well,
darker.
and yeah, and having to do with the ending, I wanted to evoke the idea that what Aurora thinks is the reality, or what she possibly thinks is the reality, because of some kind of trickery or whatever, isn't actually the reality. And it's something that she's going to have to figure out. I was also hoping with that ending to engage the reader more, so that, I don't know, let the reader sort of think for themselves what is going to happen, to sort of enter the novel and create their own continuation of it, to sort of invite the reader to ponder on what happens next.
And I guess you spoke about this idea of the fairy tale.
And yes, the fairy tale idea, but to subvert the fairy tale, there isn't a
Completely, yeah,
happily
completely.
ever after. Um, the idea of the fairy tale and fairy tale elements was very strong in writing this. I did want to create a kind of modern day fairy tale.
And yeah, well, yeah, I think I mean that wasn't apparent to me at first, but obviously speaking now, it's become apparent that that kind of structure wasn't there. And yeah, and I guess the fairy tale finishes with a nicely closed ending that usually leads to an uplifting moral about the world. But yeah,
Yeah,
life isn't like
exactly.
that. Life isn't like that.
Yes.
And fiction.
Yeah, exactly. And the idea of the prince that's going to swoop the woman away and take care of everything. The idea in fairy tales that there's this poor, beautiful young woman who meets the prince and falls in love, and it's happily ever after. That I was hoping to play with and subvert that idea in the novel as well.
Some fantastic phrase making which you bring over from Dodge and Burn. There's some really wonderful constructions that I absolutely loved. I don't know how this really, to keep the kind of pace and sort of very kind of figurative imagery and pace, also these kind of very dense theoretical ideas. It's really interesting to watch what you do.
Yeah, I hope the novel does have some comedy in it. I was trying to write comedy into it. Other people had told me that they did think it was funny, that there were funny parts to it. So it is sort of this, hopefully, comedy with horror and terror and excitement and adventure and witchcraft.
Yeah, I mean, there's moments of lightness, as the kind of companionship they get from the friends, the kind of, you know, the finding a kind of a community of people that understand you and want to explore things with you. That for me is what I sort of identified with, that they just enjoyed Aurora, and Sylvia enjoyed experiencing the world, and it came from, you know, backgrounds that didn't necessarily allow them to. And I think for me that's the kind of main thing that I really enjoyed, the kind of just the early parts actually, where they're finding, you know, reading about Jung and reading about surrealists and stuff. I really love that just that kind of sense of what, you know, that feeling that we all have at some point in life. We go, oh wow, this stuff exists. This stuff's interesting.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I wanted to capture the intensity and the excitement of discovering new things, and also the importance of sort of creating your own way of seeing, and for a group of people, how exciting and exhilarating that can be, without becoming a cult, of course.
Absolutely. And even when you get to that point, you're not going, ooh, wow, why they shouldn't be looking at this kind of stuff. It's kind of like, it's just an extension of the discovery. And that's what, in a way, that's what you're kind of doing for us by presenting it on the page. You are kind of inviting us to come along with you down this path.
Yeah, that is what I was hoping to do. I was hoping to have the reader enter into the circle of girls and feel like they were a part of them and go along with them.
Yeah, it feels like, you know, taking our hand in a way. Because it is it feels very physical, very embodied text as well. It feels like you're walking into, you know, these worlds, or new worlds that people are trying to experience. Seraphina Madsen, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you about Aurora. It's out now. It's published by Dodo Inc. It's a fantastic novel. And yeah, go out and buy it. But for now, Seraphina, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Liam.
Once again, my thanks to Seraphina for joining me, and of course my thanks to you for joining us as well. Next time, Mara Faye Leatham and Tiago Miller come along to discuss the Catalan literature in translation.